The Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Reaper Apparel Company. Reaper Apparel offers a casual line of superb fit, finish, and comfort. We design for those who refuse to die slowly and choose to live untamed. For those who aren't afraid to face the dark, for the ones that thrive in it, and for those who can appreciate life through a grim lens. That's Reaper Apparel Company. Go to the link in the description of this episode, use the promo code Mike Bono, and get 10% off. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by my own personal merch store, the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. I have hats, I have t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, water bottles, notebooks, you name it, I've got it. The description and the link for that will be in the description of this episode. Also, right now, if you use the promo code WELCOME, I will give you 5% off of your first purchase. That's the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Tactical Brotherhood, all American-made apparel, which helps support the Second Amendment. You can also find all this in the description of this episode with the link, Tactical Brotherhood. Part of every proceed does go to helping veterans, as it is a very good cause. All American-made products made right here in Minnesota. Go and check them out. Use the promo code PATRIOT15 to get 15% off your purchase. Now, let's start the show. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast. This is, as always, your host, Mike Bono. I have probably my favorite episode to date to do. But first, we did get a new sponsor in Buddy's Beard Care. Buddy's Beard Care provides premium men's grooming products at an affordable price. Products that are made in Ohio, and Buddy's Beard Care supports local too as well. The majority of their suppliers are from the Ohio-based companies here, so support local, support America. You can find them on social media at Buddy's Beard Care or online at buddysbeardcare.com. I've used these products. I'm currently using these products. My beard has never felt healthier. It has never felt softer, according to my wife. So go to buddysbeardcare.com, where size does matter. That being said, this, like I said, I've been waiting a while to do this episode, and I know Fiddy has too as well. We are going to be talking about the Rocky Balboa movie franchise, my favorite movie franchise of all time. I love the Rocky movies. We're going to talk all things Rocky, and I have a panel of guests that are here to discuss it. And so, guys, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. So what we're going to do is you're going to say your name, where you're from, and your favorite boxing movie that is not Rocky. It could be the Creed series, just not any of the Rocky movies. So we're going to start with everybody's favorite manager of the podcast, Johnny.
So I'm Johnny Fiddy Falconi, for nobody that doesn't know. Hopefully everybody knows me by now. And I live in the Cleveland, Ohio area. And my favorite non-Rocky Balboa boxing movie is probably, I'm going to say Cinderella Man, about James J. Braddock, because it's probably the closest thing to a real-life Rocky that we've seen in this century.
That's a solid choice off the bat. So next we have Matt.
I'm Matt Altomare from Latonia, Ohio, which is near Youngstown. I'm also the head football coach here at Latonia. And my favorite non-Rocky movie is, dusting this off a little bit, is Diggstown from the early 90s with Louis Gossett Jr. and Brian Dennehy. Seen it probably more times than any other Rocky movie, but that's my second favorite.
Man, I gotta say that's a solid choice to combat the Cinderella Man. But next guest that we have here, he's kind of been a staple here, but Brandon.
What's going on, everybody? This is Brandon Wiley from coming out of Erie, Pennsylvania, originally from Sharon, PA. Obviously, go way back with my boy Fiddy. My favorite non-Rocky boxing movie. I'm gonna keep it a little bit more recent because I'm just a big fan of it. And Mike, I know your wife wasn't really feeling it too much, but I gotta go with the Creed, Creed 2 specifically, because I love the return of Ivan Drago and his son Victor. I thought that was a great storyline. I thought it was super cool and intense. And yeah, I'm gonna go with Creed 2.
I'm not mad at it. I'm not. I just watched the Creeds the other day. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, they were on.
They're incredible.
I couldn't not watch it. And so yeah. Mm-hmm. And last but not least, with the guest here, a former boxer himself, Josh.
What's up, guys? Mike, thanks for having me back. You and Fiddy, you guys have been great. This whole cast you guys got today is an awesome cast. My name is Josh Himes, or some may know me as Dr. Josh Himes. I am a retired professional boxer and former All-America champion. I say that proudly because obviously I hung up the gloves and used to punch people. Now I'm taking care of people, which I like it better. But this topic obviously is dear because the Rockies are staples. You know, the pinnacles of boxing. Everybody who's in the game has watched the Rocky movies and we love them. But my favorite outside of the Rocky series, and it's got to be, my wife is with me in this bias towards this, is Southpaw, because it just paints the picture of how a couple can be affected in and out of the ring. And I love the message it delivers. Obviously, I hate that Mar got not a good outcome, but just to see how that was after the fights, win or lose, and just to see that people can come and go quickly. I love the movie and the message.
I'm honestly glad you said that. I actually watched that this morning. I knew we were recording the show. I didn't want to watch a Rocky. I wanted to watch another boxing movie. I watched Southpaw this morning. Not gonna lie, got me right in the feelings this morning. I don't know why, but it did. But that's a solid movie. I would say for me, my favorite non-Rocky boxing movie, even though I watched Southpaw today, I can't go against this. I love it when it comes on, but it's Grudge Match. Nobody really talks about it. It's a solid movie, and I love the outcome with those two on the screen together. But we're not going to talk about those today. We're going to talk all things the Italian Stallion, Rocky Balboa, and Fiddy, we're going to start with you for this one. Who do you think was Rocky's toughest opponent? And I start with you because I know you have strong opinions about this.
His toughest opponent, probably going to say, if you're going to look at it pound for pound, was Clubber Lang, because he did knock him out in the second round. Now, Ivan Drago was probably the strongest boxer he faced, but Rocky was able to go to distance with him and didn't have to fight him twice. Now, granted, Rocky was dealing with some emotional things with Mickey in Rocky 3, but I'm going to say Clubber Lang, probably because he did annihilate Rocky in that first fight and really beat him up pretty bad. So Clubber Lang is my pick.
All right. Matt, what about you?
It's hard to argue with Johnny Falconi there. I have to go with Clubber Lang, too. It immediately came to mind. Same reasons. Maybe if we dissect the inner workings of the movie a little bit, we can get into whether Clubber Lang really should have lost, but that's another story, I think, for another question. But I think so. Yeah, it's hard to argue with Mr. T.
Absolutely. Brandon, what about you?
I got to go Clubber, too. Obviously, for all the reasons that were stated, but also because he played a great mind game and mental. He screwed Rocky up a little bit. He was really intense and intimidating. And I think he threw Rocky completely off. So he was able to play that mental game that often boxers like to do. You know what I mean? They made it a spectacle. And then when he was able to put down Rocky like that, it really put a lot of things into question about Rocky and boxing. So I think Clubber, on many different levels, both physically and emotionally, he was probably the toughest opponent for Rocky.
All right. And round us out here, the former boxer, Josh, who do you got as the toughest opponent?
This is a good question. You guys have some good answers. I think Apollo Creed is the best boxer out of all those. But the best pound for pound, that I think who would win is Drago. With his size and power and strength, I don't think Clubber Lang would beat him.
Okay. I thought we were going to have a clean sweep for Clubber because Clubber's my pick too. Just that whole everything that was said here. I mean, it's you can't argue. I mean, he did knock Rocky out in the second round of their first fight. Albeit going through what Rocky was going through, it's tough to go against that. But Drago's a very close second for me. Yeah, that's definitely that. Josh
Clubber Lang, though, he had no cardio. That's why Rocky was able to beat him in the second fight. Drago did have cardio, to Josh's point. But he did go to distance. He was big, strong, physical. Like it showed him. Like Clubber Lang had no cardio. All he threw was power shots.
Exactly. And think about it. Clubber Lang didn't have the repertoire or the resume. Look, Ivan Drago killed somebody in the ring.
Yeah.
Valid.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Does Thunder Lips count in this conversation?
The ultimate.
He was a worthy opponent as well.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So Brandon, we're gonna go with you because I think we just answered this question for you. But who is your favorite character from Rocky the series that isn't Rocky?
Oh, you're asking me?
You're up.
Man, you see, I was always a big wrestling fan. So, I did enjoy Thunder Lips, but I wouldn't say he was probably my favorite character. I probably would have to say my favorite was, I loved Apollo Creed. I think Apollo was, just the how the friendship manifested. They were enemies, but they respected each other. And when Apollo came and was like, Rocky, we got to get your mind right. We got to get you prepared for Clubber, coming through. He was always a genuine friend. And I hated, of course, the way he went out. You know what I mean? Right. So that was hard. But Apollo was one of my favorite characters.
All right. Josh, what about you? I think Josh.
I'm gonna have to agree with Wiley on that one. I'm not a fan of the Creed movies, but Apollo Creed was my favorite character outside of Rocky. Their relationship was second to none, and they pushed each other from a brotherhood that was formed from through the fists.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, Matt. What about you?
Even though he's only in, I guess, 2.5 movies, you got to go with Mick. Yeah, Mickey. I find myself quoting some of his quotes on a daily basis sometimes, whether it's to my kids or my football players. But, I got to go with Rocky's trainer. He had probably great characterization and, like I said, very quotable and just very relatable.
You can't go wrong with a Mickey quote. Like, you can't. They're staples of those first couple of movies. But Fiddy, round us out here.
I'm actually going to go with Tony Duke Evers, Apollo's trainer and then later Rocky's trainer, one of the only 3 people to play in all 6 of the Rocky movies. Rest in peace to Tony Burton, who's passed on now. But I really liked him because he spoke the truth to Apollo, what a trainer's supposed to do, right? But he encouraged him, but he spoke the truth. He talked about the relationship in Rocky IV when he fought Drago about how Apollo was like a son to him and he raised him. I think Josh knows, and we all know as boxing fans, a lot of trainers take on a fatherly role to a lot of boxers, especially underprivileged boxers from minority communities. So I think that really hit home. That was really cool, and he took over. It was that guiding light for Rocky through Rocky IV, just in a little bit of that Rocky V stage, but just, said how proud he was of him when they opened up Rocky V. Rocky was having his issues, and then, and then Rocky VI, bringing him back out of retirement and being encouraging. So Tony Duke Evers was definitely my favorite character, who was not Rocky.
Yeah, I think I'm going to shock everybody with mine. It's Paulie. How do you not how do you not like Paulie, the guy that just gave Rocky shit the whole the whole franchise in all 6 movies? I love Paulie, and I quote some of his lines too, all the time. Just mainly to myself sometimes, but to my son and everything like that. And I don't sweat you. It's just stuff like that. My son starts acting tough. I don't sweat you. But yeah, just the comedic aspect that he adds to it. But Fiddy, what is the worst Rocky movie in your opinion?
You know what? I gotta say, probably Rocky 5, just because of the ending fight, not the story behind it. Because I think we can all agree we've seen boxers go through the highs and lows of their career. People do get hurt. People get, unfortunately crippled and disabled from the sport with what Rocky went through there. And I think that, and you lose people along the way, like he alienated his son to trying to live through Tommy Gunn. Rest in peace, Tommy Morrison. But the ending fight just ruined it. There was a good movie up to that point, and it just ruined it. So Rocky 5.
All right. Matt, what about you?
Yeah, you got to go with Rocky 5. I mean, it's by far, panned by everyone. But, I mean, not only just the ending fight, like Johnny just said, but the soundtrack was awful, too. And that's just, I can't rewatch it just for the soundtrack. Man, it's bad.
You gotta have a good soundtrack with a movie, and we're gonna get to that here in just a bit. But Brandon, what about you?
I think definitely Rocky 5. The big fan in me of Rocky the character, I was deeply saddened when he lost everything, and I was like, oh, what a like, how much more stuff is Rocky gonna go through? Like, this guy's really been through the trenches. But I guess that's what made his story so great. I wasn't the biggest fan of the storyline in general. I mean, it had its moments. I understood where they were going with it, but it didn't really have that cultural impact into. I don't think about it as a top tier movie when I think about the Rockies. Like, I can go, if I'm binging the Rockies, I can go without watching that one. Like, it's not a necessity, you know what I mean? But you only do it by obligation because you try to. When you're in the mode to binge something, you want to watch everything. But if I had to go without it, I could.
Yeah, I think that's why when they have the Rocky marathons on TV, they stop at 5. I don't know why they don't play 6 on TV, but they always stop at 5, and I think that might be the reason. But Josh, what about you?
I'm actually going to have to agree with all you guys. It's the only one that is not really a fight in a boxing ring. It's not the whole setup is different. I agree wholeheartedly with you guys.
All right, so we'll switch gears and we'll stay with you, Josh. Well, what's your favorite Rocky movie and why?
It's a toss-up between the Rocky 3 and 4 with Clubber Lang and Ivan Drago. I love the comebacks. The comeback stories are amazing. From Apollo with Rocky. That, again, we talked about the relationship. My favorite character outside. Those two are going to be a tie.
Okay. Not mad at it. Brandon, what about you?
I got to go with Rocky 4 with Drago. I love the sequence when Rocky was in Russia training. And he came back and he was all swole and he was ready to go and he was ready to take on Drago. Like, I just love that. I love that whole segment. So, and of course, like, the sadness that came along with it with Apollo, unfortunately, dying in the ring. But again, Rocky was with that whole, vengeful spirit, but also honorable spirit that he had, made for me. Like, that was the peak. That was the one of the best Rocky movies for me.
Okay. Matt, what about you?
Yeah, not much round table difference in opinions, but Rocky 4, I don't know the age of all of you guys here with me, but Rocky 4 solely because I actually got to experience that at the Salem Twin Cinema Theater. I was pretty young.
Okay.
My dad got to take me, but I still remember that old theater, the smell of the popcorn and the theater being packed. So not only just a movie, because all four of them or even five, you can find good parts in, and all four of them are good. I mean, I tell you, over the years, I've went through that, one being my favorite, two being my favorite, three being my favorite, but just for the experience and the nostalgia and the memories, I have to go with four.
All right. Fiddy, you got a difference of opinion on this one?
Yeah, so Rocky Balboa, Rocky 6, and I'm going to give a couple different reasons why. Love Rocky. Everybody sees the background. It is from Rocky 6. Got my Rocky and Adrian hoodie on. But here's the thing, is the first Rocky I got to see in theaters when I was in college. And I think it shows, like, especially now, right, everybody on this is not super young. This show, right? And it shows, like, as life goes on, things get taken from us, and we don't want them to get taken from us, like our youth, our athleticism, sometimes our family members. And I think it's a story about what life truly is, that you will always be defeated by time. But I think it can resonate with people because everybody wants to get back in for that, like, one more round, or that one more game, or that one more event, or they want to try it so much, and we sometimes just physically can't. And I think when you can see something like Rocky 6, him coming out of retirement in his late 50s, that resonates with people because we all get things taken from us, and we just want to experience that glory he had, like, one more time. And I love the storyline. I mean, it's super sad with, like, Adrian dying, but I love the love story behind that. As well. I just think it's a terrific movie, terrific soundtrack, and it's just a great comeback story for, like, every great champion having one great fight left in them.
Yeah, and I believe, I don't know why I always mix the movies up, but 6 has probably my favorite monologue from Rocky Balboa when he's talking to his son about life and about how that, refers to in boxing. It ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. I quote that all the time. I love that. That's probably my favorite quote. So I got to agree with you on that one, Fiddy, for that reason right there. Rocky 6 and Rocky Balboa was definitely my favorite for that monologue right there that he has in the middle of the movie. But yeah, that's definitely one of my favorites. But speaking of that, I know they all have their training sequences and all that. Fiddy, to you, which movie had the best training sequence?
I love the training sequence in 4, and I love the training sequence in 6, but I think the training sequence in 2 is really cool. He's out there throwing a sledgehammer around, smashing metal, doing pull-ups on the old jungle gyms that we all remember here that they probably can't even have out today, because they're like dome and all that. He's running through the streets, jumping over benches, in the gym doing, push presses that you're probably behind his back. That's not good for you. We all know that. So, but that training and coming back from, like, Adrian saying, there's one thing I want you to do for me. And he goes, what? And she goes, win. And he goes into that type of training. I think it's incredible. Just because he had no will to go without her, and with her, it made, I think, that training sequence that much better.
All right. Yeah, not a solid choice. Matt, what about you?
Yeah, I think one of the beautiful things about the Rocky movies is, starting with 1, they found some things that worked cinematically, and then they just rolled with it through 2, 3, 4, 5, and even 6. I thought it was an excellent training sequence in Rocky 6, but you gotta go right back to the beginning. I mean, the iconic running up the steps. I still have visions in my head of them punching the frozen piece of meat, piece of beef, the side of beef. So, yeah, I got to go back to the beginning too.
All right, Brandon, what about you?
I mean, I know earlier I mentioned, for one of the reasons being the training sequence, but Fiddy made some great points about 2, and that got me thinking now because it was pretty, like, empowering when Adrian was in the hospital bed and she had just awoke, and she kind of encouraged him because everything, he centered everything around Adrian. And so when she said that, he got in the zone and he was like, "Oh yeah, it's on. Like I'm gonna do this. All this doubt that I have in myself, like I'm gonna pour it all into my training and everything." So it's I think I still have 4 slightly edging. But 2 is definitely creeping up right there. And Fiddy, you enlightened me a little bit and made me reconsider about 4 being a complete clean sweep.
All right. Josh, what about you?
In terms of training, that is correct, right?
Yeah, training sequence, yep.
I love 3. I love when Apollo Creed had enough and said, let's go to his game. He brought him to his gyms. He started to learn the rhythm and the footwork, and I think that's unbeatable. It was Rocky's change in dynamic as a fighter, and he was then able to do both, go back and forth, and obviously start off boxing, but then resort back to the brawling. But I love that change of dynamics as a fighter.
All right. I mean, that's a lot of great points, but for me, I got to go Rocky IV when he's training in Russia and he doesn't really have the equipment and all that, and he's running through the snow that's up to his waist and everything like that, and just that whole sequence and being away from Adrian, and then she shows up there and everything like that, and then his training gets better when she shows up because she's with him and she's been with him through everything. But yeah, that whole sequence in 4, I got to go with 4 just with how archaic the training was. With not having anything out there in Russia and running through the snow and everything like that. But Matt, I want to start with you on this one because I said we were going to bring it up, but what movie had the best music?
Yeah, well, 6 had a good soundtrack. The original music is iconic, Rocky IV, though, I mean, by far. It had both instrumentals by Vince DiCola and, of course, the Survivor songs. I know Eye of the Tiger is probably going to get mentioned there from 3, but, I probably wore out my blank cassette tape that somebody made a copy of the soundtrack for me, written in pen on the side of it. I probably wore that out over the day back in the day. So, yeah, I have to. Even now I catch myself YouTubing that Rocky IV soundtrack, late at night or something. So definitely 4.
Okay. Fiddy, what about you?
I do really like 4 because they have 2 like great songs with that, like No Easy Way Out and then Hearts on Fire. So I think they're like both a staple of that. But I like the soundtrack from Rocky 2 the most just because the Going the Distance and Alone in the Ring combination that's like 5 minutes long, I think is great because that Going the Distance is really like that second part of the fight, and then that like Alone in the Ring is a great method. Rocky 6 was great. They all have great music, but I'm gonna go with Rocky 2.
Okay. Brandon, what about you?
I was gonna mention Go to the Distance and all that. I probably will have to say again, I'll probably have to go with Rocky 2 as well. But then I always say, man, as long as they're playing Eye of the Tiger, I don't really care. Like, is it in all the movies? That if it's in all the movies, then I like all of them. I like all the soundtracks for every single movie because Eye of the Tiger was the best damn song out there.
Absolutely. Josh, what about you?
I got to agree with everybody. I'm not a big sway one way or another. All the Rocky songs I love them all. My kids love them all.
Yeah, this was a tough one for me, but I gotta go with Rocky 1, the original, with the Eye of the Tiger and everything like that, and all the sequences and that. It's hard to beat the original with that one for me. So Rocky 1 does it for me. But Josh, we'll go back to you on this one. Do you think the Rocky movies are more of a love story between Rocky and Adrian or a sports movie about boxing?
Sports movie first, love story second.
Okay. Brandon, what about you?
I have to agree. I think I have to agree with Josh on this. Sports movie first and love story second.
All right, Fiddy.
I think Rocky and Adrian are the greatest love story ever. That's why I have the song that has a heart that says, "Yo, Adrian, we did it." And even in death, he still loved her unconditionally. So for me, I think it's a love story first, because without Adrian, Rocky never accomplishes what he wants to, in that to become a boxing sports movie. So for me, love story first, greatest love story ever, has transcended 5 decades and the testament of time, and then boxing movie after that.
I knew that's where you were going, just with the shirt and everything, with those two, with the heart around it. I knew it was going to be love story for you. But Matt, what about you?
Boy, I tell you what, he's tough to follow, man. He keeps changing everybody's opinions on here. I follow him. Wow. I mean, of course, you immediately jump into saying sports first, but then, Johnny comes in with the well thought out answers, and the jury deliberations are out. I don't know. I guess I think now that I got to follow him, I think you can't have a Rocky series without it being a love story first. I mean, it'd just be an action-packed boxing movie, but because of the success of that love story and the characterization of them, I think that led to them being such a big hit and continuing on with the movie. So, I don't know, Johnny. I got to quit following you, man. That was a good one. You changed my mind again.
If you look at it, think about it like this. We all seen him, right? So, in Rocky 1, he found Adrian, he got the fight, his life's coming together. But really after that fight, when she said, "I love you," it really set him apart. Rocky 2, he gets married to her, but he can't go through with the fight. Adrian's not backing him, right? Until she says, there's one thing I want you to do for me. When Rocky 3, she challenges him after Mickey died. He says, I'm afraid of losing what I have. Rocky 4 can't really get going in the snow until Adrian shows up. Rocky 5, the conversation they have in the street, about losing their son, losing the family, coming together after this. In Rocky 6, and it's sad, but, him going to her grave and talking about it, right? And when his son shows up at her grave with the flowers, and he says, "It's been a long time since I've seen you train," again, that brought Rocky back into that method to fight. So I think it just has to be a love story. It's just transcended time.
For all the listeners out there, if you don't think Fiddy has been thinking about this since birth, you're out of your mind. This is the deepest I've heard anybody talk about Rocky, but he's not wrong. I mean, you're not wrong. It makes the movies for me. And Matt, since I know you're getting kind of tired of following Johnny, and we're going to let you go first on this one here. What is the saddest scene in Rocky, in your opinion?
Well, and Rocky movies really like to play on your heartstrings. They really do. They've got that formula down. I've got to go with the Rocky 6. I mean, that scene got me, at the grave, at the cemetery, at the grave. That's probably what I got to go with. Younger, when I first saw the original 5, I was a lot younger, more of an adult. And Mickey and everybody else, they weren't central to the characters. So, as John just explained what a love story it was, it doesn't get more final than, being at the cemetery and having, Rocky and his son there together. So that's what I'm going with.
All right. Fiddy.
I'm going to go with, because it's all one shot scene when it's the anniversary of Adrian's death and they reminisce about the ice skating rink. And he says when she grabbed my arm, I felt electric, and he points, and it talks about putting his arm through the door and the Adrian's ghost there and going back to the pet shop. To me, I think that's the saddest thing because, again, things in life get taken from us. Sometimes it's our loved ones, and all we have is memories like that. So I think that really was the saddest thing.
All right, Brandon, what about you?
Well, no, I gotta agree. I'll say this. I definitely am hearing everybody in regards to Rocky 6 and obviously Adrian not passing away. But I gotta say that the one that always gets me every time is when Apollo died. I mean, I think it was just so like traumatic. And every time that episode or that scene comes on, in my mind, I'm like, can this change? Can Apollo maybe he can live this time? Maybe they'll just throw the damn towel and it'll be okay. And he'll be here even though I know the outcome, I'm always hoping for a different outcome. And so that's how I know when something impacts me is like when I'm like, I know the outcome, and in my mind, I'm like, just throw the towel and let's get this fight over with. So when Apollo died, man, that was a tragic scene. And so that to me, that was one of the saddest scenes, aside from obviously the Adrian scenes in 6, but that was a rough scene, brutal.
I got to tell you this. I know we're talking about the saddest thing, but it made me laugh when you said that because my wife looks at me when I'm watching Rockies, and because I watch them like I've not seen them 5,000 times. Like I don't know what's gonna happen. Like I get what you're saying. Like just throw the damn towel. Like it's every time, and it's just how I watch them. But Josh, what about you? Saddest scene in Rocky?
I gotta agree with my man. When Apollo died, from a fighter standpoint, I just had a friend come out of a coma. I have other friends that I fought with at tournaments that passed away. You don't get to play boxing. It's the only sport where you see people die. I mean, that's scary. It's sad. So from seeing it firsthand from my old training partner, my sparring partner, come out of a coma just recently. That's seeing a fighter who's still like full of vitality and life pass away is just shattering.
Yeah, this one was a tough one for me to think about, but ultimately what gets me every time is Mickey's death. And kind of goes along the lines with what Fiddy said about Adrian's, that you lose something, you lose somebody or something in your life. It's just Mickey's death to me is the saddest scene. I mean, it's up there. Adrian and the graveyard scene with him and his son is a very close second to me, and Apollo's right up there too. But yeah, Mickey dying for me is the saddest scene for me. But I want to round it out with this, and this is going to be a very interesting. If nobody knew this, but Josh, I want to start with you since you are the resident former fighter here. But have you ever watched the real life fight that inspired the Rocky movies? It was Muhammad Ali versus Chuck Whipner at the Richfield Coliseum in March of 1975 for the heavyweight championship of the world. Have you actually watched that actual fight in real life, which inspired the movies?
I have not. Guilty as charged.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realizes that's what inspired Stallone to make these movies. But Brandon, what about you? Have you ever seen the actual fight?
I've never seen the actual. I never watched the whole fight in its entirety. I remember just watching documentaries about Rocky, and I remember certain references to what was the inspiration. So I've seen clips, but I've never watched the fight in its entirety.
Okay. And Fiddy, I'm skipping you to go to Matt, so Matt doesn't have to follow you again on this one. But Matt, what about you?
The entire fight, no. I know it is available somewhere. There was a really good documentary on Chuck Wepner that I was able to watch, and I've actually watched it a couple of times. I can't plug anybody else's show because I don't know where I saw it or what streaming service or whatever is on, but it was pretty well made, and it went in depth about Chuck Wepner and his life and, subsequent lawsuits that he filed against Sylvester Stallone. So fight, no, but am kind of aware of the, basis for the movies.
All right, Fiddy, I know you got a lot of comments on this one. That's kind of why you were last, so go ahead.
So I actually watched it on like ESPN a long time ago, probably 20-something years ago. They had like a replay of it, but you can find it on YouTube. For people that don't know, the Richfield Coliseum was actually in like Richfield, Ohio. That's where the Cavs used to play before they moved downtown in '94. People don't know Chuck Wepner, the Bayonne bleeder, was literally like a million to one shot, former Marine, mixed up with the mob a little bit. He had a chance to fight Ali, did knock Ali down. People say he stepped on Ali's foot and Ali fell over. But Wepner just took an absolute ass whooping in that fight to the point that, they had to stop the fight in the 14th round. But it's very interesting. ESPN 30 for 30 did it. It was the real life Rocky, was a documentary. Liev Schreiber has played it. For people that know the actor, they had a movie about him as well. So a lot of cool things about Chuck Wepner, but it was a very interesting fight. And you can see why like somebody could get inspired from that. Now Chuck Wepner, the human being, little bit different than what like Rocky was, right? He was, former Marine, bigger, all this stuff, but very interesting. And really the first guy that truly tested Ali when he was really like in that prime of his boxing career, unfortunately before he had some losses at the end. So it is cool. You can find it on YouTube. It's pretty great.
Yeah, I like everybody else other than Fiddy, our resident boxing nerd there that watches everything that has to do with boxing and fighting. I've only seen the documentary. I've only seen the 30 for 30, the real life the real life Rocky. I haven't actually seen the entire fight. But yeah, that threw me for a loop finding it out that it was actually based off of a real fight and a real fighter and everything like that. So that made me like Rocky a little bit more than I already did. I mean, I was already pretty much obsessed with the Rocky series and the Rocky franchise, but that is actually all the questions I have on the Rocky franchise and the Rocky Balboa movies. I'm so happy we did this episode here. Because I could talk about Rocky all day. I was trying to keep it to a minimum because I know if once I get on a Rocky rant, it's the day's over. Like that's all I'm talking about for the rest of the day. My wife is probably going to lose her mind tonight because this is probably all what I'm going to be talking about for the rest of the night. But that is actually going to do it for this week's episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast. I want to thank all of the guests. Dr. Josh Hines, Brandon Wiley, Matt Altomare, and, of course, everybody's favorite manager of the podcast, Johnny Fiddy Falconi, for coming on and bearing with us and talking about Rocky. As always, if you enjoyed the show, be a friend, tell a friend. If you didn't, tell them anyways. They might like it just because you didn't. That's going to do it for me, and I will see y'all next week. The Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by W Energy. Energy drinks made for gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. For gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. Go to the link in the description where you can find the best energy drinks out there. Less caffeine than a cup of coffee. Also, no jitters and no crash afterwards. Use the promo code Mike Bono and get yourself 10% off. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by my favorite sponsor of the show, and that is Shankit Golf. Golf apparel made for the everyday golfer. We might not go out and shoot a 6 under par. We're probably going to shoot a 6 over par, but this is going to give us the gear that's going to help us rocket on and off of the course. Go to the link in the bio, use the promo code Mike Bono, and get yourself 10% off there as well.